Welcome to the Hot Spotting Real Estate Podcast. This is a bi-weekly podcast that talks about all things real estate with a splash of real-life topics. So tune in and let's keep it real. All right, we got another great guest on today, Mr. Brad Umansky, and I'm going to give a little background on Brad. Born and raised in Long Island area of New York, earned an undergraduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business, relocated to Southern California in 1992 to chase the woman who he has been married to for almost 30 years. And he has 3 adult children, and he is currently the president and head coach of Progressive Real Estate Partners, a leading retail-focused brokerage firm based in Rancho Cucamonga, California. And finally, he's the author of Value-Added Successful Strategies for Listing and Selling Investment Real Estate. And you also have a blog, Brad's blog, which is released monthly to his subscribers. So we have probably one of the busiest guys in Southern California sitting in front of us today. So I appreciate you coming in.
Hey, thanks, Mike. This is great. I'm very excited to do this with you.
I need to circle back and discuss the chase that you did in 1992 following your wife out here.
Yeah, well, I went to school back in Philadelphia. She was Cal Poly Pomona graduate. We met at a conference in New York, and it's a crazy story from there. Not necessarily one that you would want your kids to do, but it involved some backpacking throughout Europe and working on a kibbutz in Israel for 3 months.
Wow! And
then we made a decision to move to Southern California. And I started in the commercial real estate business, and I didn't know Foothill Boulevard from Baseline, the 10 freeway from the 60, and I just started knocking on doors and getting at it.
Nice. What's her name? Let's give her
Lauren.
a shout out. Lauren. And then you have 3 adult children.
Jason, Rachel, and Hannah.
How old are they?
They are 27, 25, and 23.
All right, so the heavy lifting's done.
Yes, the heavy lifting is done.
That's good.
They are all employed. They're all relying upon themselves. It's pretty nice.
Any of them in the real estate game?
Nobody is in the real estate game.
All right.
I've got a son who's a teacher. I have a daughter who's doing some paralegal work, and I have another daughter who's in the event planning business.
That's amazing.
None of them have got the real estate bug.
That's it. Well, good for you. You've done your job, and I'm sure you and your wife are enjoying it right now. Empty nesters for a while, right?
Very much so.
That's good. Let's give the listeners a little background on how you got started in real estate, in commercial real estate for that. And then from there, maybe we could transition into about your current company, and maybe you could give some details about Progressive Real Estate Partners and what you guys do.
Sure. So I got started, as I said, I moved out here in 1992. I had always walked around New York City looking at buildings and knew that I had the real estate bug in me. And I kind of realized from my experience working on a kibbutz in Israel that I needed to be self-employed. I did not do well. I was a really bad employee. I realized that I needed to eat what I kill. And I answered a classified ad for being a leasing agent out in the Rancho Cucamonga area.
Wow.
I've been out in the Inland Empire ever since. I started, the job was to go knock on doors and try to generate some business. Evolving from there,
Was that already retail?
Yeah, I've been a retail guy for 30 years.
So had that job ad been industrial, would you have gone the other way, you think?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, because I think a lot of people end up in the specialty that they end up in, not necessarily by choice, but by coincidence of how they entered the business. And would I have been an industrial broker? Yeah, probably so. If I had gone to an area where it was densely populated office, I might have been an office broker. Hard to say, but I've always really enjoyed the retail business. I think I spent 4 years at Lean Associates out in Ontario. It was 18 industrial brokers, myself, and one other person who kind of specialized in a geography, but not necessarily a particular product type. Uh-huh. And I used to joke around. I said they sold vanilla ice cream and I sold Rocky Road. Industrial, it was how high are the ceilings? How many dock high doors? What's the power? That was kind of. And with retail, as you know, the difference of 100 yards or 100 feet is the difference between success and failure. And there's just so many factors that go into retail.
Much more complex.
Yeah. So So after I worked for Grubb & Ellis for about 4 years, I then worked at Lean Associates for 4 years. I then I got out of leasing. I was a leasing guy for those 8 years, and then I got out of leasing. I For 7 years, I was at Sperry Van Ness. I was an investment sales specialist selling retail properties. I then got the brilliant idea that I was going to be a developer.
Yeah.
So I spent 2007 and the early part of 2008 looking at doing development and or redevelopment of properties. And in October 2008, I said, this is a really bad idea. I'm going to be bankrupt if I keep going in this direction. And so I decided to start a brokerage company, recognizing that what people really needed in the industry in 2008 was they needed people who understood what it was like to get out and hustle.
Yeah.
Paul Galmarini, who is the first person on our team, who's been on the Progressive Real Estate Partners team ever since then, was our first broker. And I joked around with him. I've always joked around with him. I said, if he failed, we may not have may not have gone in this direction because I would have felt like I wasn't very good at teaching, but he succeeded.
Well, it's a good guy to put your money on.
Yeah, he sure is, and everybody in the company is homegrown, and we don't really look for people that have been at other companies for a bunch of years. I like to have people that are a part of a culture and the only way you can really have people that are a part of your culture is to kind of grow up within your culture.
And so Progressive, how many brokers do you have now?
So there's 11 brokers.
Okay.
We do both leasing and investment sales, as well as we have a gentleman that specializes in gas stations and car washes. Actually the selling of the business and the real estate. And we have a gentleman who specializes in land, and he dabbles kind of across the different land products. He'll do residential land, he does commercial land.
Gotcha. But everybody else is still on the retail.
Yeah, very much so.
Oh,
yep, very much
great.
so. We do more leasing and sale transactions than any other brokerage office out in the Inland Empire, and very proud of the team.
Yeah, as you should be. As you should be. You guys, when anyone says Inland Empire to me, you guys are probably the first brokerage that I think about.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, it is very encouraging. Yeah, you guys have been out there for a very long time and very successful out there. Can you list some of the challenges? Like, let's say when you first transitioned from, all right, I'm going to be a broker, and then you're like, okay, maybe I could be a developer, and then you started your own brokerage.
Yes.
What were some of the challenges you faced when you said, I'm going to go ahead and do this, and what did you run into while you're building it?
Oh, so many challenges. And I will say, as we sit here, 12, 13, 14 years later, that I was a little naive in the fact that I thought that once I sorted out the challenges over the course of the first few years, that many of the challenges would then be gone, and we'd kind of be able to cruise. And as of yesterday, we were going through a whole email transition, and I realized that it just never, it never ends.
Yeah.
But some of those initial challenges were, I had a lot of really good clients over the years, but I couldn't serve all of them myself, and learning how to allow clients to work directly with the other brokers and not feel like you had to be involved in everything, and kind of delegating that relationship. So it's not delegating tasks, it's delegating a relationship. I think most brokers think that, nothing could happen without them. And I realized pretty quickly that not only did things happen without me, but a lot of times things happen better without me.
Right.
And I tell people all the time that, look, when you hire us, I'm aware of what's going on, but a lot of times the team members are going to do a much better job than I am, and that was a big challenge for somebody transitioning to starting their own brokerage firm.
And did you have that mentality immediately when you started, or were you trying to still, you had maybe one or two brokers and you're like, I'm still going to run these deals? How long did it take you to come to that realization?
It was pretty quick. It was pretty quick because as soon as it happens the first time, you realize, this is good. I can kind of spread myself across more relationships by having good people on the team, and you recognize that that's a real advantage to both the broker, the client, and yourself as somebody who's trying to grow a business.
Would you still be involved at any capacity within that deal as the broker, or were you just final steps, look over kind of, and it looks good?
So I would stay involved from the perspective of, and it depends upon the size of the transaction, the complexity of the transaction, but I'm really a problem solver at this point.
Right.
Like when the kid goes into the pediatrician and has a cold, pediatrician knows exactly what to do. When the kid has something that nobody can figure out what it is, that's generally when I get called in. And obviously I got called into a lot more times when the kid had a cold early on than today. And so it's really kind of a lot of fun being somebody who's dealing more with the challenges of really difficult situations. Yeah.
And then at any point, were you still debating on, moving away from retail, or were you just full on focused on retail?
I think that one of the things you'll notice is that just about every dominant brokerage firm in Southern California is a boutique firm. Or at least there are a lot of boutique firms that do retail, not only in Southern California, but across the United States. And I think that has to do with the specialty of it, but it also has to do with the competition for resources. If you're a retail broker working for a JLL or a CBRE out in the Inland Empire, you are a stepchild to a massive industrial business that's happening out in that marketplace. And if you are a company like a JLL or a CBRE and you have to have a choice of allocating resources to somebody's 3,000 square foot 10-year lease or a 300,000 square foot industrial building, you kind of can quickly figure out where the resources are going to go. And so by staying in our world of doing retail, both leasing and sales, it's really helped. It's helped everybody. It helps the brokers, it helps the clients, and it allows us to stay focused. And of course, every year I think about, well, what if we expanded into office, or what if we expanded into multifamily investment sales? I keep coming back to having a really good group of people that are very specialized. It goes a long way.
I want to talk a little bit about your book because I appreciate you sending it to me, by the way. And I started reading it. I'm 100 pages in, and it's very cool. And I think what we're talking about, you touch on it pretty early on, that you need to pick two things: one, your geographical area, and two, your specialty, whatever area of real estate you're going to go into on the commercial side. So with that, when did you figure all that out? And because you've written this book pretty close to the time when you started your brokerage, right?
Yeah. So what happened was, if you want to get the timing exactly correct, is in October 2008, when I realized that I wasn't going to be a developer, I basically I had nothing to do because I hadn't started the brokerage yet. And so I had nothing to do. I was doing some house cleaning. I found a sheet of paper where I had written a bunch of chapter names on it, because as I was at Sperry Van Ness doing investment sales, investment sales brokers, as you've probably figured out, tend to be very close to the vest. One of the things about leasing people is they're very open and sharing information. Investment sales people tend to be more close to the vest. And so as I was going through my investment sales career, I would encounter things where I'm like, oh, I wish somebody had told me that, or that would be a really good thing to tell somebody else. And so I wrote down some chapter names, and then all of a sudden I find this list of chapters. I have nothing else to do, and I basically said, if I don't do this now, if I don't start writing the book, I'll never do it. And 6 weeks later, I had written 150 pages.
Wow!
And all of a sudden, I said, oh man, now I've got to finish it. Because what am I going to do? Throw 150 pages away? I think the book's about 300 pages. I wrote 400 pages. There's 100 secret pages that never got that we actually took out because it didn't make a lot of sense. Is that going to come out
on a special edition?
Yeah, I don't know. I think a couple of my blogs may have incorporated some of that information. But so that's the timing of when the book, and it was still like even when I finished it, it was another 6 months or so where it just sat around because I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I mean, It's pretty unique that someone writes a book just to write a book. Most of the time there's a reason for it. Like they're trying to go out on the speaking circuit and they need to have a book that they can reference. And as a good friend says to me, he says, Brad, you just needed something cathartic to do. You had nothing to do.
Yeah.
And this was something that you could do, and it kind of made you feel good because it was giving to the industry.
I mean, I wish I read this a long time ago, to be honest with you. It's a really good read. I'm only 100 pages in, but it's so far, I can't put it down. And the information in there is extremely valuable so far. And a lot of it I had to figure out on my own. It would have been a lot easier, because I eventually went on my own as well, this could have been really useful for me.
Well, good.
But yeah, we'll definitely make sure that people can get access to this book, because I think it's very useful for a lot of people. If someone's trying to decide about going into retail,
Yes,
on the commercial side right
yes.
now, what could you tell them just to help them kind of make an easier decision? Or what about retail is it that you're attracted to? Maybe we could put it that way.
So first thing I would say is I always joke around that there's a genetic trait for maps. Like if you don't find maps interesting, you may not be a retail broker. At least that's something that if you're like, oh yeah, I love looking at maps. I love like looking around. I think that curiosity, when you drive into a shopping center and you kind of drive through it and you kind of observe the different types of businesses and does that kind of like get you interested? And then there's clearly a sense of, do you get a satisfaction of seeing people succeed and seeing businesses open? And I think those are some of the ingredients. It's almost easier for me to look at it from what are the other product types,
right? And
how,
say, why would I not go to that?
So, for example, office doesn't interest me because I think office is as close to residential as you can get, because effectively an office is a home for a business,
right?
And decisions are made by a group of people who are basically all, I don't like the color of the carpet.
Right.
I don't like the feel of this building. We talked a little bit about industrial earlier. I just think that retail is so complicated that it makes it so much more intriguing. And I think if you find that complication exciting, that I think is a good indicator that retail could be the product type for you. Yeah,
and especially maybe also if someone has a little bit of a entrepreneurial, bone in them, you kind of, because that was one reason I gravitated or stayed with it, because I got hired out of college randomly and I decided to stay with retail. The one regret I do have is that I didn't focus on more sales. I stayed on the leasing side of the business. But whoever could start and get involved in the investment sales side is definitely going to have a good advantage with the monetary side of the business.
I think it's worth noting, because we're pretty unique in the fact that we do both leasing and investment sales. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the myths that we can uncover here is a good leasing broker can do easily just as well as a good investment sales broker. Investment sales definitely has the potential to be more lucrative. I think a lot of people find leasing to be a lot more fun,
right?
And I think you have to kind of look at it from that perspective. But I think there's this mystery about investment sales, like, oh, those guys are making all the big bucks, and truth is, some of them do. Some of them completely knock it out of the park. And I think that the ability to knock it out of the park is stronger on the investment sales side, but the ability to also do poorly is stronger on the investment sales side. It is a very difficult business. And so depending upon what your propensity is for risk,
right,
matters a lot as to whether you become an investment sales broker. But I got to tell you, I enjoy, it's one of the reasons why we do both of them. I enjoy both parts of it, and I can teach both parts of it. And, but leasing people are, I think, a lot more fun to be around. And if I've just offended anybody on the investment sales side, I'm sorry, but I think everybody can go to an ICSC and look at the people that are smiling and having a lot more fun.
Yeah, it's true.
You can see it.
Let's say I was, one of your brokers, and I've been doing leasing, and I come to you and I will say, I want to get into investment. What advice would you give me?
So I think it can be done, and we've had some people that have done it, but it definitely is a bit more challenging. What I would suggest doing is pick a very concise geography that you know very well. Go inventory, say 100 properties. Mm-hmm. Make sure you know who the owners are, and then start making those calls. And obviously, there's a lot that goes into before you start making those calls. But they don't have to know that you do leasing.
Right.
They could just know that you're doing investment sales in that particular market. They don't necessarily know. And if it turns out that you like it and you are successful at it, where you procure some listings, you sell some properties, and you want to expand that 100 to 200 and then go after it from there, you can certainly do that. One of the most challenging things I ever did, and I was very fortunate, is I took off my leasing hat in 2000. I fired most of my leasing clients.
Wow.
And I made a big announcement to everybody that I'm no longer doing leasing. I'm now doing investment sales. It was a huge risk. I was very fortunate that a handful of clients that I had done leasing for were very supportive of me and gave me some of my first listing opportunities. And then it was just hard work from there to make it happen. But that is definitely, you have to have some really good people in your behind you to make that work.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. If someone in general, let's say, wants to start off in the commercial real estate industry, what out of this book would be the best piece of advice for them if they're deciding to get into commercial real estate right now?
So there's a chapter at the end of the book that you haven't read yet called Choosing Your College.
Okay.
And what choosing your college means is choosing the firm that you go to work for. And that to me is the biggest decision because figuring out who you go and work with and how they are going to provide you with the resources and the training and the coaching that's necessary is easily one of the biggest differences between success and failure. And we for the most part have an antiquated model in the brokerage business where we put somebody who's new in the business with a successful broker, and we tell them to learn from that successful broker, do whatever that successful broker tells them to do. But what you'll clearly find is that most successful brokers are not good teachers. Mm-hmm. They don't. That's not what they do. They're great at brokerage.
Right.
And so finding somebody and they may be a less successful broker, but they're a better teacher. And so if I was interviewing with, let's say I was somebody new in the business and I was interviewing with a firm, I wouldn't just ask the question of what kind of training do you provide, because although I would definitely ask that question, but I would ask, how do I learn? Who will be coaching me? I think those are really important questions. What types of tools and resources are available? In what situations have you had somebody who was younger, newer in the business like me that has gone on to succeed, and how did you think they did it?
Yeah.
Are some of the things I would tell someone to ask.
And how much time should someone give themselves to see if they're going to be successful in this?
So I think that there's someplace else in the book where I say this, but I also don't sometimes remember. But I think that you should treat brokerage like you're going to law school. Law school's 3 years. I think at the end of 3 years, and now I'm going to offend attorneys. So first I offended investment sale brokers. Now I'm going to offend attorneys. So at the end of 3 years, in the investment sales business, not the investment sales business, the commercial real estate brokerage business, you should have made money along the way. You should be well on your way to a successful career after 3 years. You shouldn't have any debt, and you should love what you're doing. If law school, you have a couple $100,000 in debt potentially,
right? And
I'm not sure how many people who graduate law school after 3 years really want to be a lawyer.
It's true. I've seen that happen. Well, that's really good advice. Well, great. For those of you who want to know what the book is, it's called Value Added Successful Strategies for Listing and Selling Investment Real Estate. And I'll show it to the camera. This camera. Here you go.
And the good news is that we had run out of inventory about 5 months ago. And because of the supply chain, it actually took 5 months to get a new set of books, but they arrived yesterday. So,
nice.
So the book is available, and we'll get in the show notes. I guess we'll put
a link directly there.
Sounds great.
Well, I want to go straight into the best part of the show, which is when Alessandra wants to know, and this is my daughter's pre-recorded questions, and I'm excited to hear some of your answers on it.
Great.
All right, let's start with question number 1.
What are some of your hobbies?
So hobbies, I enjoy horse racing, which most people don't know about. I very much enjoy the whole business. I like going to the track occasionally. I watch it on TV. On some of the weekends, I actually am a part owner in a couple of racehorses.
All right.
And I will definitely say that it is, I will never say that that's investing money. I will say that that's spending money.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's a hobby. Right?
Exactly. That's why it's a hobby.
I did read something in here. Santa Anita. Do you guys still do a party there?
Well, I think we're going to do another one this year. We haven't done one in a few years.
So was that because of the party, or were you already attracted to that?
So my first job when I was 13 years old was shoveling stalls, cleaning stalls back on Long Island. I worked at a horse farm, and I just have always enjoyed being around horses. And I don't do it enough, but it's something I enjoy. I just very much enjoy. And then my wife and I are also very much fans of musical theater and live theater.
Oh, cool.
So we love to go to the Amundsen Theater, the Pasadena Playhouse, the Pantages Theater, down to, if there's a theater, La Mirada.
Nice.
And so I would say those two are things that those take up some time on the weekends.
Awesome. Let's hear your next question.
Do you have a favorite sports team?
Do I have a favorite sports team? I think the San Diego Chargers the Los Angeles Chargers now.
Okay.
They're still the San Diego Chargers to me. I can't get over it.
Still been the San Diego Chargers in my opinion.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Clippers and the New York Yankees are probably my three favorite teams. The Yankees is because that's what I just grew up loving and enjoying. The Clippers was because when I first moved out here, I just couldn't get myself to be a Lakers fan.
This is very disappointing to me.
Well, but I'm going to explain. When you go back 20 years ago, 30, 20, 25 years ago, when you went to a Lakers game,
okay,
you expected them to win, and if they didn't win, you were disappointed.
Right.
If you went to a Clippers game, you expected them to lose, and if they won, you were ecstatic.
I see.
And I have been known to be somebody who roots for the underdog, and there's a lot of that with rooting for the Clippers. And now, who knows? Now the rivalries become a little bit different because both teams are not doing that great, but it's very intriguing.
I'm not going to hold this against you.
Don't hold it against me.
I won't. I mean, I think it was the episode prior where I was talking with someone, and I said I'm lucky that I haven't had a Clippers fan on my podcast yet, and I guess I got what I wished for.
There you go.
Well, great. Let's hear your next question.
What is your favorite food?
So two things come to mind. One is I very much enjoy sushi, and I love a good diner. I am very much a breakfast person. I could eat breakfast all day, and there's nothing that makes me happier than a good diner that serves a good omelet with some hash browns or some fruit. And I just love a good diner, especially if I can sit outside at a diner. That makes my day.
Wow, that's a great answer. No one said that before on this show.
Well, I've listened to every one of your episodes because I'm a big fan of the show, and I know you've had a couple of foodies on.
Yes.
And when I listen to them, I'm as opposite of a foodie as you could imagine. I am very simple when it comes to my eating, and I'm amazed at some of those people how invested they become in fine foods and drink, and so
I don't know how some of them get the time.
Yeah.
But more power to them. That's how we get to know where to go eat. They get to try all of them and say, okay, go try this one. Don't try that one.
Okay. Well, if you need a good diner recommendation when you're out in the Inland Empire, you let me know.
Well, let's get one right now. Where do you have a go-to out there?
So my favorite is actually a little, because it's mostly a secret, is that in the city of Upland, there's an airport called Cable Airport.
Okay.
And there's a diner called Maniac Mike's that's attached to the diner. And so you can sit out on the patio, have great food, great service, and watch the airplanes take off and land.
This is great information for everybody listening, especially for me.
I highly recommend it.
Wow, very cool. I'm glad I wanted to hear it now. All right, let's hear our last question.
If you can live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, that's such a tricky question because of the fact that as empty nesters, my wife and I keep thinking about, is there someplace else we would want to be? We live in Claremont. I really love living in Claremont. I think we have a bunch of traveling to do in the future. Amsterdam is someplace that is really intriguing to us. London's really intriguing to us. I don't know if I would want to live in New York City, but we really love New York City. So I think that's a question in progress. But right now we're really happy where we live, and I love living in Southern California.
There it is. That's a good answer. All right. Well, if someone wants to connect with you what's the best way for them to reach you? Is that via LinkedIn or your email? And we could put either one.
Yeah, I'm super easy to find. The company's Progressive Real Estate Partners. Website is progressiverep.com, rep.com. My email is brad@progressiverep.com. Email is probably the easiest way to reach out, but all of my contact information is on the website. I'm very easy to find.
Fantastic. And I'm going to give you one last plug because I've done deals with some of the guys in your firm, and we almost had a couple deals done. But if anybody's trying to get a deal done in the Inland Empire, which you're primarily focused in, or if anybody's trying to sell a building or needs to wonder, who am I going to get to lease this out? Your first call should be to Progressive, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I didn't even pay for this ad.
You got it. Well, I appreciate you coming out, and we hope you have you back soon too.
Thank you so much.
All right, bud. Just a reminder, please take the time to subscribe to this podcast and leave us a rating and review. It's greatly appreciated. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hot Spotting Podcast. If any listeners have any questions or topics they would like to hear on the show, or if you simply want to connect, you can email me at mike@hotspotproperties.net. Once again, thank you for listening. It's been real.